Now it's time to get a macro perspective of what's going on around us in the world. Let's stay up to date with current affairs around the world and also get an in-depth look into how these global affairs impact South Korea. For that, we have our World Deconstructed segment to help us. We have Dr. David Tizard joining us through Zoom, Professor of Korean Studies at Seoul Women University and Hanyang University, and also a columnist for the Korea Times. Good morning, Dr. David Tizard.
Good morning.
So we are talking about South Africa today, a very controversial law that's been passed recently by the President Ramaphosa, and also possibly sparking very tense discussions between the US President Donald Trump and the South African president in the White House as well. Could you tell us some details about it?
Yep, a major topic of contention at the moment is South Africa's recent passing of a land expropriation law, which the White House has denounced and said it is tantamount to persecution of the country's rich white majority. Into all of these moving parts, last week we saw the first set of white South African refugees landing in the US as part of a larger relocation group under the Trump administration. Now, the South African government and Ramaphosa himself has denied any allegations or persecution of a white genocide. Nevertheless, lots of the global media have reported and shown images of these 60 white South Africans arriving in the US after being granted asylum. And this has sort of caused a lot of cognitive dissonance for people who normally assume refugees to be of a certain demographic. So some of the questions are, what is actually taking place in South Africa at the moment? Is it correct to call what is happening a genocide?
Yeah, so could you give us a little bit more details about what this expropriation law actually is?
The expropriation law is a difficult thing, and South Africa obviously has its own history of apartheid, which this all comes into. There was a previous 1975 act which was drafted during the apartheid time, but that has been criticized for being legally unclear, having no clear compensation plans. What's happened recently is that President Ramaphosa in South Africa, he signed this new bill into law in January of this year after months of debate during parliament discussions and due to opposition to it. However, this new law allows for the government to seize land from any private owner, whether they're white or otherwise, for public purposes and public interest. This includes infrastructure projects, public service expansion, environmental conservation, land reform, or equitable resource distribution purposes. The law spells out that fair compensation must be issued, but it also allows seizure of land without compensation in certain instances. So the South African government has essentially said, by this new law, we can take land off people and we can use it for our own means if we deem it necessary. Much of the land is owned by white people who are called Afrikaners or Boers, and therefore they're very much disgruntled and scared to some degree by what might expire.
Yeah, of course, it might be a bit of unwelcome news for what is a minority white group in South Africa. Yeah. They are majority a black country, but of course, many of the black community there aren't as well off as the white community. The white people in South Africa do take up or own most of the land, so of course, it's not going to be welcome news for them. But yeah, you talked about Afrikaners. Could you give us a little bit more details about who exactly are the Afrikaners?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the middle of the 17th century, you have people from Western Europe, often Dutch, German and French, settling on the southern African tip. And they're forming their own community inside it. Their language, which they speak, is Afrikaans. It's quite similar to Dutch. You can sort of really recognize lots of commons between the two. Afrikaners are also known as Boers, which actually means farmers, and the group itself is largely associated with farming. Now, in 1948, South Africa's Afrikaner-led government introduced apartheid, which also means apartness. And this was taking racial segregation to a very extreme level. It included laws banning marriages across racial lines, and it just made very hard for black people to live. They were denied education, they were denied access to workplace, and this all continued until 1994 when Nelson Mandela was brought to power with the ANC in an election in which black people were allowed to vote for the first time, only 30 years ago. Afrikaners in South Africa, they number around 2.5 million people out of a population of around 60 million. So it's around 4 or 5% of the population there.
Yeah, so that is a very small minority group, but they do control most of the wealth as well. So as I said, this is unwelcome news for them. They're probably most likely not happy with it. What are the responses from them?
Obviously, they're scared. You're correct to say that the Afrikaners collectively own around 70% of the country's land. And this is a big source of discomfort. And the current government feel like they want to address this and put this right. Some Afrikaner groups, they're saying that this new law could see their land confiscated, perhaps violently. It will also affect property values, knowing that this is all taking place. So they're scared. They're scared not only about losing land, but they're also scared about losing their culture. They're also scared about losing their homes and losing their language. They feel that the government and the opposition, the wider parties, are not doing enough to protect them. They feel persecuted. The level of that persecution is debated by many people, and we've seen these dangerous words being bandied around quite freely. Nevertheless, there is a fear amongst the community.
Yeah, so what are exactly the intentions of the South African president for passing this law, possibly knowing that he'll be facing a lot of backlash from the Afrikaners?
Facing a lot of backlash from the Afrikaners, but getting a lot of domestic political and cultural support from those who are on his side. More than half of the black population in South Africa is categorized as poor. Only a minority of people have access to land. And so Ramaphosa's government is saying that this new law will help the government redistribute land. It will help historically marginalized groups such as black people, women, and that. And so the statement from the president's office is that this new law is not a confiscation tool, but a policy to redistribute wealth. And so it's not seen as a punishment, but rather they're sort of trying to readdress the historical discrimination that's taken place. And so by mid-May, what we've seen so far is that no land has been forcibly taken over by the South African government without compensation under the new law, although many are still worried in which direction this could take.
Right, yeah, so this has, of course, brought up many kind of accusations and possible conspiracies as well. One of them possibly being that these lands will be taken by force by the government. As you said, some of those dangerous words being floated include genocide. It was one of there were questions of whether the South African president and Donald Trump's conversation in the White House would eventually get to this. It did, and it did create some tensions in the White House, and there was a bit of a heated discussion, if you want to put it euphemistically, between them. Genocide is something that's being accused in this case by President Trump. Could be or the Afrikaners are maybe saying that it could be a maybe connection to this law as well. But yeah, why is this claim of genocide coming up?
The claim of genocide is coming up because some people have lost their lives or they have lost family. Now, genocide itself is a specific legal term, and this is being given a lease of life by sort of internet talking points. And now Washington, under President Trump, and Elon Musk himself, a South African, a white South African, they've also rallied around this cause, which has got a lot of people talking about it. None of South Africa's political parties, including those that represent Afrikaners and the white community in general, have claimed that there is a genocide in South Africa. That word is not used politically. And in February this year, a South African judge dismissed the idea of genocide as imagined. Speaking to Afrikaners and South African people that I know, their stance is the people that do call it genocide are either people who, on one side, they've lost family, and there's a lot of people there that know they've lost people. you'll find it hard pressed to find Afrikaners who think the farm murders is a conspiracy theory. Everyone has met someone who has lost family this way, and it's quite often old people in fairly brutal ways. So the farm murders are a real thing, and there are statistics to back this up. However, the people who call it genocide, they've perhaps, they're reacting emotionally to situations they've experienced, or they've gone down sort of what we call an internet rabbit hole. So it's not a genocide by the definitions and the terms that we use. However, those that downplay the significance of what's happening in South Africa are, some might say, intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, and also there's a controversial song that's been that's come out of this as well. What's that all about?
Julius Malema is a very politicized figure in South Africa. His trademark song is "Shoot the Boer, Shoot the Farmer," and this is something that he sings at political rallies. Now, Afrikaner lobby groups have tried to get this song banned. They say it's highly inflammatory. They say it amounts to hate speech. South Africa's Supreme Court of Appeal has ruled that he's within his rights to sing this song, and it's a song that was first popularized during the anti-apartheid struggle at political rallies. The court ruled when it did that a reasonably well-informed person would understand that when protest songs are sung, even by politicians, the words are not meant to be understood literally, nor is the gesture of shooting to be understood as a call to arms or violence. So, as you used the term earlier, it's the court has decided that this song is to be understood euphemistically. The song is a provocative way, they've said, of advancing a political agenda. However, the previous South African president urged Malema to stop singing the song, and people do find it a little bit distasteful, but nevertheless, it is still sung at political rallies around the country.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of controversial songs recently, one namely by Kanye West as well, so it's causing some concern. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think from all of this, we're getting a little bit lost in the White House show that is clearly designed, but Afrikaners absolutely have legitimate concerns here. Like minorities around the world, they fret about the future of their language, the worry that their children may no longer be taught in Afrikaans. And of course, Afrikaners, a lot of them see South Africa as their home, and that should be a place for all South Africans. So hopefully this fractious event in the White House does a couple of things. One, it ends for once and for all the white genocide slur, and it also reminds the South African president of the hard work that he has to do to take this country forward despite all the troubles that it's facing at the moment.
Right, we'll have to see and wait and see how this develops and what kind of deals, if any, come out from it, and if it does actually create more tensions between South Korea and the US as well. David, thank you very much for a week's worth of your insights. It was wonderful speaking to you, and hopefully we could speak again soon.
Thank you.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.